Hello, everyone, and welcome to my session about untangling customer data, your business driven by customer insights. So this session is brought to you by Capgemini within the Building the Future 2021 event. And my name is Ruben Ruiz. I'm a senior applications consultant at Capgemini, more specifically under the DCX team, so digital customer experience. So without further delay, let's dive into the topic. Before we start talking about untangling your customer data, we first need to speak a little bit about customer experience. And customer experience is essentially bridging your customers' expectations with your business goals. So it's all about finding the right balance between your customer, what he needs, and your business expectations. And well, you need to do this in a way that you deliver value at speed for both of them. So for both your business and for your customer. To support this customer life cycle, well, you need to make sure that you have comprehensive and actionable customer data. The problem here is that customer data, well, it is tangled up. I mean, it is scattered around several systems and it's normally hard to use. So you've got your web store customers, you've got your campaign responses, you've got your app users, and each of them is in a single environment or application, and it's normally hard to make sure that your web store customer and your app user is the same person. So what you need to do first is work on your data foundation. So you need to make sure that you tidy up all the data that you put in your web store customers in the right format, your app users in the right format, so you can actually combine that information and make use of them, because normally, well, they complement each other, and you want to use them to build a unified customer profile. So to build a profile for your customer, it actually makes sense with all the data from those systems. But again, customer data is scattered, okay? It is complicated. And this is because, well, you have an increasing number of data sources. So both internal and external. So you've got your CRM system, you have your LinkedIn page. So data comes in from everywhere and normally comes at a very high volume, okay? Which means that, well, it's hard to ingest that data. It's hard to take care of that data because it's normally fragmented, it's duplicated, and it's siloed out, okay? And this brings in a few questions. So how do you ingest the data, transform it, and store it, right? So that's a valid question. I mean, the volume is big, so you need to take care of it. How do you match and unify that data into a single customer profile? And how do you leverage that profile and feed it in with additional data from other enterprise systems? And well, you need to worry about the new normal today, which is trust and ethics, right? So your customer and your organization is expecting an ethical use of the data that you are using. So I mean, it's data about persons, so it's data about your customers, and you need to treat it in a way that embraces an ethical standard and embraces global data regulation. Once you've taken care of your customer data, while your organization is expecting to use it at its full potential, right? So you want to use it either in its raw format, so you want to know what purchases your customer made, you want to know where your customer is from, but you also want to enrich it somehow, right? You want to know what's the scoring for your customer. I mean, what's the propensity to buy? What's the scoring for his lifetime value? You want to create customer profiles. You want to use cognitive services as well to know things such as customer empathy, his social personality, for example. You want to do measurement and insights, so you want to know how efficient your campaign was, what the customer journey was for your customer. On top of that, well, you will want to create audiences and segment that data so you can give it a purpose and use it for a certain campaign or a certain application that you want to build to serve your customers. And you also want to know the customer events. So you want to see a single profile for your customer where you can actually understand what did the customer buy, what reviews did the customer give to my products, and so on and so forth. But again, there are issues with this, and this is mostly because the current landscape, as it is right now, is normally limited for data-driven customer experience. So on one end, you've got standardized and disconnected customer experiences. This is because you are using siloed out applications such as a CRM system, an e-commerce system, or a marketing automation tool. And this will give you a limited vision of your customer. And then on the other end, well, you do have initiatives which tend to centralize this data. Normally, they are based on IT, and they are initiatives such as data lakes, for example, or a business intelligence data warehouse. And the issue there is that there's normally poor data quality and governance associated to this, or they are not delivering the value that the business actually needed at the very first step. And this results, for example, in data swamps or in duplication of efforts to unify the data. So the idea behind the customer data hub is to make it the new way to connect your customer platforms and your customer data and insights. So with the customer data hub, we want to deliver personal experiences, a unified customer view, which is actually usable and actionable. So you want to use your unified customer profile in other applications and leverage that profile. You want to augment your employee capabilities. Okay, so you want your employees to know more about the customer so they can better serve him and provide a better customer experience. You want to close the loop on that customer experience and measure it. So you want to know the outcome of that. You want to be agile with the customer data hub because you might want to bring a new system in. You might want to bring a new CRM or a new customer platform or customer facing tool and bring in the data into the customer data hub so you can take advantage of it. And you want to build on collaboration. So you want to leverage the data from your different departments or different applications so they can each benefit from each other. So it is also part of a broader conversation with your customers, right? With business and with IT. I mean, you want to address their enterprise data pain points and the challenges that they have. So on one end, business may want to have an harmonized set of data for the customer, a unified customer profile, actionable data that they can use to deliver a good experience to the customer. And on the other end, you have your IT departments, which will want to make sure that the data is trustworthy and that you have a layer of governance on top of that, that they are able to ingest a massive amount of data that you want to feed into the customer data hub. And you want to make sure that it stays coherent between the customer data hub and your customer platforms. So this is all part of our proposition within the customer data hub. And our proposition is to build the customer data hub as the interlock between your customer platforms and your enterprise data platforms, okay? And with the customer data hub, we want to deliver personal experiences. We want to make sure that we are working towards trust, compliance, and ethics. We want to have infused use cases with AI and analytics. We want to have actionable data for your customer platforms. And we want to build this on an enterprise data platform that is actually scalable and can be further expanded. But this isn't done from one day to the other, okay? So this is a set of stages. This is built with a set of stages. And we can see 5 main stages that we need to go through. You might be in one of them already, so you don't need to go through all of them if you're already ahead, but it's important to take them into consideration before you start. So the first stage would be about data centralization. So you want to ingest the data from your customer platforms, and you want to know what the major touch points are with those platforms. On the second stage, you will work on building a single customer view on your data model. So you will think about data governance and making sure that you are complying with data privacy. On the third stage, once you've got your single customer view built on your data model, you will start working on having a unified customer profile. Okay, so you will leverage that data model that you built to have a single profile of the customer that you can further enrich and enhance with additional data. You will also start thinking about data science and data analytics on top of those unified customer profiles. On the fourth release or the fourth stage, you will start achieving customer data proficiency. And what we mean by this is that you will start feeding it feeding in the unified customer profile into other systems, okay, so you can actually take advantage of that unified data and start closing the loop in terms of customer experience. You will also be able to start performing data exploration and discovery to further obtain more insights about your customers. And last but not least, and personally, I think this needs to be addressed throughout all the stages, but we have a stage which is more focused on this, which is the stage number 5. And it consists about thinking on the ethical use of your customer data across all data-driven activities. So as I said, there's regulation on this. There's also expectation from organizations and for customers. So you need to make sure that you have an ethical use of the customer data. If you look at the customer data hub, this is the architecture that you will see. This is agnostic of technology right now. So what you will have is at the very bottom, and let me point this out to you to make it easier. So at the very bottom, you will have your data sources, which will provide data into the customer data hub. And at the very top, you will have your customer platform, so your CRM system or your e-commerce website. So these customer platforms are customer facing or employee facing. In between, you have the customer data hub, and it has several layers. So the first layer at the very bottom is the data foundation. So this is where you will take in the data from the internal or external data sources, integrate it into the customer data hub and enrich it, as well as create the data models that you will use. On top of that data foundation, you will have an AI and analytics foundation. So this is where you will build your data science and machine learning models. And on top of this other layer, you will have your AI and analytics execution. So this is where you actually expose your unified customer profile. And this will feed the data back into your customer platform so they can actually leverage the unified customer profile and his activities. Transversally to this, you will have a layer about data governance and a platform underneath that will serve the entire customer data hub. It can be, for example, Azure if we are talking about Microsoft. If we speak a little bit about capabilities for the customer data hub, so what we want to deliver with the customer data hub is an enriched customer understanding. We also want to be able to use cognitive services to calculate things such as the customer empathy, your brand reputation, for example, or cognitive knowledge about the customer. We also provide or want to provide prediction models such as the propensity to buy or the propensity to churn for your customer. And we want to perform customer segmentation based on scoring or other classifications. On top of it, you can, of course, do traditional BI, customer data exploration and discovery, visualize the customer data, perform query on top of it, do a measurement of the customer journey, or address the voice of your customer. If we transpose this to Microsoft technologies, so if we build a customer data hub with Microsoft technologies, this is the overall picture that you would get. So the enterprise data platform is based on Azure. Your customer data hub sits between that enterprise data platform, it's part of it, and it will be built based on Dynamics 365 customer insights to do your unified customer profile and Azure Synapse Analytics to enhance the data that you already have and build models with machine learning or other things on top. And you will want to feed your business applications with the data that comes out from customer insights. So you want your Dynamics 365 CRM or customer engagement system to receive customer insights data and leverage it. You want to use that customer data in Power Platform and Microsoft Dataverse as well, or you can just do traditional reporting with Power BI. So as I said, this was the architecture agnostic of technology. If we map it to Microsoft, we would see it with this aspect. So this would be the architecture built with Microsoft technologies. So the main vectors that we want to deliver with the Customer Data Hub based on Microsoft technologies are essentially the following. So we want to deliver a 360-degree customer profile, and this will be the gold source for your customer platforms, the gold source for customer information for your customer platforms. And this is built on top of Dynamics 365 Customer Insights, which has packaged-in connectors for internal and external data sources. We want to democratize data and insights using AI services, Dynamics 365 Customer Insights, Power BI, and as well as embedded widgets in your customer platforms. We want to also have your business process orchestration automation built with Power Automate. And we want to provide as well a custom layer so you can put in your own Azure Synapse Analytics and machine learning models, as well as Power BI on top of the common data model. So the personas that will normally use the Customer Data Hub, it's not limited to these three personas, of course, but these are the main ones. So you will first have data analysts and engineers, which will use the Power Platform connectors to ingest customer data, unify that customer data into the common data model format, and well, essentially work on your customer data so you have a customer model that you can use within your organization. On top of that, your business analysts will start building profiles for the customer, defining measures for that customer. So what's the average purchase on a certain channel? What's the churn measurement for that customer, for example? And on top of that customer model and those measurements and profiles that were built, your business users will start having an end-to-end view of the customer journey, and they can use that to enhance their business and their and their goals. So let's move on to an example, and this example is a brand called Untitled Shopping. Okay, and Untangled Shopping is essentially an online brand that sells various consumer items and brands. Okay, so they have an ecosystem composed of an online web shop and a shopping application in which they sell their own products. And they have a set of goals which they want to fulfill. Okay, so they want to have a single view of the customer because their online shop and their shopping application are siloed applications, so they don't speak to each other. And you might have the same customer in both applications, but they are not aware of that. They want to boost committed customers, so they have customers that buy frequently, so they want to make sure that they can be targeted and continue to be fulfilled. They also want to keep track of churning customers, so some customers might be drawing away from the brand and they want to retain those customers. So Untangled Shopping wants to work on that segment, and they want to report on consolidated data as well. So they want to do some reporting on their customer data. Okay, so let's move on to the demo right now. Okay, so let's dive into customer insights. And this is where Untangled Shopping will work on the goals that we just mentioned. So the first goal is having a single view of the customer. In order to achieve that, well, we first need to bring in our data sources into Customer Insights. So we have two different data sources right now. We have our web store customers and purchases, and our app customers and as well as the purchases. You might think that having these data sources is complicated, so it is not. So if you look at this, these are the actual connectors that you can use for the data sources, and they are standard. So you don't need to build a specific connector for this. There are already a lot of them available, and they're pretty easy to use. So you don't need to do any development on this. So you can connect to Salesforce, you can connect to Common Data Service or Dataverse for Dynamics CE, for example, or to other things such as SAP, SharePoint, or simply to your Azure stack. Once you connect to these data sources, you need to manipulate the data. I will not do that right now, but I can show you that you can do this using Power Query. And Power Query is what we already use in Power BI to create our report. So it is very likely that you already have someone in your organization that is aware on how to use this and how to actually transform the data using Power Query. Okay, so let's go back into the demo. I have my data sources in. Once I have done that, I need to work on unifying my customer profiles. And this is what you call the unify process, or the 3 M's. So what you will do here is you will map, match, and merge. So mapping is essentially saying that my web store customer information, such as the full name, for example, will correspond to my unified, to the full name of my unified customer in customer insights, for example. And I will do exactly the same thing for my app customers, and this will be done for all the fields that are coming in and that are relevant for me. Once I have done this mapping, and then I've told customer insights where the information is coming from, I will work on matching. And matching is saying, well, my web store customer and my app customer might be the same, and I want to determine that based on the email. So I want them to have an exact match of the email, for example, to determine if they're the same person. But it's not limited to this. I mean, you can do this for names, for example. You can say that you want an exact match or a close match. So, for example, if you have Ruben Ruiz as a customer from the web store, and then Ruben Ruiz as a customer from the app store, but in the app store, Ruben has 2 N's, for example, the system will be able to match it, and customer insights will be able to say, look, these 2 guys are actually the same person. Once you've matched, you will merge. And this is essentially saying, I want to keep the full name from my web store customer, and I want to bring in the country from the app, because I know that's where the best data is in. And once you have mapped, match, and merge, you will have a unified customer profile. So essentially, you will already start to see your customers with a unified data. For example, country is coming from the app. It's not available on the web store, and still I see it all together. Apart from that, you can also bring in activities, and this is relevant because an activity is essentially something that the customer has done. So you can bring in purchases, you can bring in customer reviews, for example. In my case, I've brought in purchases from both the app and the web store, and I've displayed them here in a timeline within the customer. So this already solves my first challenge, which is having a single view of the customer. What we want right now, oh, by the way, let me say, I did this in around half a day, so it's quite simple to do. You don't have to be technical, you just need to be a power user that is more or less understanding of Power BI and Power Query to actually bring in the data. So the second challenge here is boosting committed customers. And let's say that a committed customer is a customer that spends over 270 euros on average in any of the channels. Since I've already brought in my purchase information as a data source, whether it's from the web store or the app, I can already start working on measures. And measures essentially are calculations that you can build based on the data sources that you have, on the data that you've brought in from your customer. So you can build, for example, a customer measure or a customer attribute, sorry, as I've done here, and this will be the average app purchase, and it is quite simple. It is essentially a very simple interface where you select the field that you want and you do the calculation that you pretend you want to do. So I've done my average app purchase for my customer, the average web store purchase for my customer as well, and I've put them in the customer profile. So as you can see, for example, this customer has an average web store purchase of 255 euros. You can also make this available as a business measure, so you have an overall measure for the organization. So in my case, I can see the average app purchase for my whole business is 252 euros, okay? But let's go back to the customer attribute. that I just built. So since I have a measure which is telling me the average expenditure of my customer on the app and the website, I can then build a segment to actually determine which customers have spent over 270 euros. So I have built a segment like this. It is giving me all the customers which fit that criteria. You can add more complex or less complex criteria. And the important thing here is that this isn't done one time and just stays as it is. So you build a segment, and as the data comes in from your data sources, the segment gets updated over time. So it's a living creature or a living list that you have here that will give you the customers which are in the exact condition that you determined. So I've already answered my second challenge, which is having a way to tracking my committed customers so I can boost them with something else afterwards, with a campaign, for example. My third challenge is to handle churning customers, and for that, I also want to create a segment for customers which have a churn, for example, a churn probability of over 45%. But churn isn't something that comes in from my data sources. So it's something I need to calculate that. And to do that, we can build a prediction model, for example. In my case, I've used an out-of-the-box churn model, and you feed this model with data, for example, from purchases. You can do a model for one-time purchases of the customer, or for example, for continuous services that you might be providing to the customer. This is quite simple, so you get asked for the sample data for the purchases. You determine whether it's purchase data, it is customer reviews, or it is something else. And the system will essentially bring in the data and start calculating the churn probability for that particular customer. So on top of that, you then build a measure associated to the customer. In my case, I've added a measure called churn probability, and this is fed from the model, from the churn model that I built. The churn model becomes available also as a kind of a data source within Customer Insights, so you can leverage that data as well. And I am now able to see the churn probability for a customer based on the purchases that he did on the last month. On top of that, well, you just build another segment. Customers close to churning, that's the segment I've built. And you say that you want customers which have a churn probability or a churn score over 45%. So you now have a segment which is telling you the customers that might be about to churn from the company. On top of that, we have the final challenge or the final goal of the company, which is reporting on the customer data. So you can do this two ways. You can create a standalone Power BI report and connect it to Customer Insights, or you can do it directly within Customer Insights. In my case, I've built a global footprint report, which is showing me my brand presence over the world. So it will show Untitled Shopping customers around the globe, and it will provide me, for example, the average churn likelihood per country, the number of customers per country, the average web store purchase per country as well. So once the data loads, you will be able to see that this is fed with Customer Insights data. So this is typical Power BI, but embedded within Customer Insights. So this is only the beginning, to be honest. So once you've unified your customer profiles, once you've segmented the data that you want, you will be able to start activating your customer data. So you can use your segments, for example, to feed MailChimp campaigns or Marketo campaigns. By the way, these are all export destinations and connectors that are available within Customer Insights. So as I was saying, you can use your segments to create a MailChimp campaign, a Marketo campaign, a Dynamics Marketing campaign, you name it. You can also use your customer profiles to create audiences on Google Ads or Facebook Ads with your unified profile data, for example. Or you can simply leverage the data within your customer platform. So you can, for example, create an embedded widget within Dynamics CE where you will see your the measures that you've built in customer insights, which are not available in Dynamics 365 by itself. So it's something that has been calculated based on information from other systems, or you can put in the activity timeline that I've shown you as well. So if someone from sales is working with that customer, that person can actually see that the customer bought several products or gave a negative review over a product that we have. And if this is not enough, you can, of course, use the API that is available within Customer Insights and build your own connectors and consume the data in the way that you prefer into your own applications. So this is everything for today. Thank you for joining in. I hope you've enjoyed the session as much as I did. And if you have any questions, if you want to reach out to me, you've seen my contacts on the session at the very beginning, so feel free to get in touch. I will be certainly glad to help you. Thank you very much and stay safe.